she's going to take it away.
For coming. We're going to start with Jean Kreiling, followed by J.C. Rammelkamp and Karen Petersen. Jean L. Kreiling is the author of 4 collections of poetry. Her work has been awarded the Able Muse Book Award, the Frost Farm Prize, the Rena Espaillat Poetry Prize, and the Kim Bridgeford Memorial Sonnet Prize, among other honors. She lives on the coast of Massachusetts. Take it away, Jean.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Karen. And thanks to all of you for tuning in today. I'm going to read poems from my newest book, Home and Away. And I'm going to start at home. Home is where you should feel safe and relaxed. And that's what I saw in a painting by Elisa Niesenbaum that inspired a triolet. This poem takes its title from the title of the painting, which includes the phrase La Talaverita, which refers to a style of brightly colored tiles, as in the background of the painting. La Talaverita, Sunday morning New York Times. This blue room calms us as we sprawl and read the Times together. We can face our fear of bad news side by side. Though wars proceed, this blue room calms us as we sprawl and read, my hair loose, his hand on my leg. We need each other to feel safe, as we do here. This blue room calms us. As we sprawl and read the Times together, we can face our fear. My own memories of home include lots of time, lots of time in the yard raking leaves. Here's a longish poem in rhymed couplets called After Helping My Father Rake the Leaves. First, I took a running leap, and then, half buried in the heap that we'd raked up, I lingered, caught in a cocoon of leaves and thought. I still remember how they smelled, those cast-offs autumn winds had felled, both old and fresh, both wild and clean, the sweet decay of summer's green, and how they looked, small flags half furled, hot colors from a chilling world. I breathed more deeply for a few enchanted seconds. More leaves flew, as Dad watched, leaning on his rake. He must have known what seasons take. Leaves bright as fire leaves bright as fire broadcast their dark reminder. Beauty was a spark that couldn't last. The freshened breath of autumn air foreshadowed death. But even so, my father grinned and turned his face into the wind. Years later, I'd learned just how brave my father was, and how a wave of chill or doubt could leave him caught in his own grim cocoon of thought. A darkness stalked him, but he lit bright fires of love and work and wit, and faced the wind, and found his way for decades past that autumn day. And now I kindle every flash of memory that warms the ash of loss. I see his profile still, and face my autumns with his will. Home includes our neighborhoods and local businesses. Here's a rondeau about one of those businesses. At the realtor's office. They're selling dreams, they like to say. Their storefront photographs display the pricey, well-staged fantasies they call rare opportunities and gems. They hope you'll overpay for your townhouse, ranch, or chalet, your great investment, your doorway to debt. You're lured in by degrees. They're selling dreams of closet space, kitchens, gourmet, and pride. Why shouldn't want outweigh misgivings and realities? The realtors ply their expertise, and you're an easy mark to sway. They're selling dreams. Next, 2 poems from the away section. We New Englanders don't have to travel very far away to see something beautiful and interesting, as in this sonnet. At the Fisherman's Memorial, Gloucester, Massachusetts. I barely swim. I lack the faintest notion of how to helm a boat of any kind. But sea salt in my veins has long aligned my restless heartbeat with the wild commotion of foaming breakers. Walking by the ocean, I always breathe more deeply, and I find much more than air. On this spot, designed to honor fishermen and their devotion to labor in the roughest seas, I grieve for those named here, who breathe no more, for whom the sea meant danger, work, a battered keel. My romance with the ocean seems naive before reminders of a salty tune, before this great bronze sailor at the wheel. And a spot a little farther away inspired another sonnet. At the Cliffs of Moher on Ireland's Atlantic coast. Ahead of me, 36 tourists climbed against a roaring wind that had defeated 24 more. I struggled, each step timed to dodge a gust, as my resolve competed with waves of air so stout and strong they made my every halting stride a revelation of my own smallness. But my eyes repaid my legs and lungs, the cliffs an illustration of time itself. Seas crashed against their faces, gales howled as earth stood motionless and mute. And at the peak, I seemed to inhale traces of something pure and ancient. From the brute magnificence of earth and air and sea, I drew old strength and new humility. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to conclude with one more sonnet, and I am returning to home for this one. It's called Dishwasher. O merciful magician who erases the evidence of all my gluttony, you drown the cookie crumbs, swallow the traces of Chardonnay, inhale the bits of brie. I hear your swishing, splashing incantation, the holy water swirling through the crud. But I can leave the room. No supplication or kneeling is required. No sweat, no blood. At cycle's end, a look inside reveals that if I'm not quite cleansed of sin, at least my dishes are. From my unbalanced meals, I'm as good as absolved, and with no priest. I've managed to gain spotless grace and hope by tithing just a little pod of soap. Thank you, everyone.
Lovely.
I think I'm up next, Charles Rammelkamp. Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to be my recent collection from Kelsay is called The Tao According to Calvin Coolidge. It's essentially a biography of Calvin Coolidge told in dramatic monologues and soliloquies, mainly in the voice of Calvin Coolidge, others in other voices, principally his older son, John. The idea behind it is, Calvin Coolidge, the silent Cal, it was kind of a joke about Calvin Coolidge, but I thought I would reimagine his silence in terms of Taoism, where silence is the source of wisdom and stillness. He who says does not know, he who knows does not say, is how the Tao Te Ching proceeds. The poem, I'm going to read one poem, and this one is actually in the voice of the poet. It's The Envoy, the last poem in the collection, and it's called Bard. And it's going to be it's a play on the spelling of the word bard. I like to think of the barred owl, B-A-R-R-E-D, owl. I like to think of the barred owl as the bard owl, sage poet of the forest, mask, face ancient as a totem pole, expressively expressionless expression, omniscience made flesh and feathers. Hoo, it calls. Who cooks for you, the mnemonic. But I hear an accusation, a summons. You. In the pre-dawn quiet of the woods, its prophetic warning clear as Gabriel, the silence that follows deafening, until a sudden screech pierces the dark, a small rodent, the bard's prey. Then the silence comes roaring back. Thank you.
Petersen.
Here we go. You can hear me, yes? Great. I'm going to read from my book, Trembling. It won the Will Mills Prize. It's a series of short poems. The opening is called Trembling. All beings tremble, fear, passion, anticipation. A deer sensing the hunter, you feeling my touch, a cat while being stroked, the delicate shaking, the message of living, the message of dying. The world is trembling. This is called The North. How can I begin to tell you of my hunger, this yearning for the world of silence? Aha, I give the Sami command for go, and the sled runners begin to fly over low hill after frozen river, and all the land gives itself to me, surrounds me. The wind rushes everywhere, the sled packing the snow with a hard, dry crunch, wet spray of slush, shush, and sway. The husky's labored breathing, the only sound, as the cold, impartial and deadly, descends. The sound of death waits in my breath, but still I love this land, its slow unfolding beauty. I glory in the smallness of things, the vastness of things, the harshness and the rapture. Ooh-yah, I give the command for stop and bury my face in the lead dog's fur to feel his warmth, the wildness of his life. I celebrate the sound of his beating heart. This is called Baghdad Memories. The girl just stood there patiently, little hand grasping a white purse that was small like her. Her other hand rested on a stand holding a profusion of paper flowers, her fingertips touching the edge of a red poppy, just so. But it was her eyes, haunted and dark, the solemn set of her mouth, that got my attention. This is all that's left of my childhood, she seemed to say. A purse, some shoes, a lacy embroidered dress. I waited for an adult to come and claim her, but nobody came. As I drove by later past the shuttered ironwork of abandoned shops and cratered streets, the sky at sunset was as red as that poppy. And she was still there, waiting, little white shoes facing forward. Leaving Long Island, the 557 hurtles past fields of darkness, its mournful whistle cry heard only by tomcats on the prowl in the dare of night. I'm seduced and want to leap off the train, run toward those small lights of slumbering towns, the twinkling connection of separate lives and a little peace. But drunks and babies fast asleep are all that's left of innocence. The sky is now yellow, the darkness electric. The city is coming. No one knows anyone there. And finally, Elemental. Went out briefly under dark afternoon skies to the edge of the arroyo, sliding away into the rest of the wandering world. Checked the mail, called in the dog, breathed the fresh air as the thunder rumbled and the rain threatened heavily. All coming down now, lightning striking the far horizon, and the fierce wet wall almost blinding me. Crept back in the house with the barking dog, whipped by tree boughs, slippery rivulets, shifting earth. I'm bent over, circumflex, put in my place by nature. Thank you.
So much, Karen. It's always a pleasure to hear you read or read one of your poems.
Thanks.
Next we will have Margaret Lloyd, followed by Elaine Sorrentino and Barbara Lydecker Crane. Margaret Lloyd, a poet and visual artist, was born in England and grew up in a Welsh immigrant community in New York State. She received her PhD at the University of Leeds, England. She has published 5 collections of poems and a book on William Carlos Williams's Petersen. You can visit her website at www.margaretlloyd.net.
Thank you, Jenna. So this is my book, Sleeping in the Same World, published last year. And I want to really thank Karen and the whole staff is really wonderful at Kelsay Books. The title, Sleeping in the Same World, I don't know what came in your mind when you heard me read that, but it's really an image of unity and how we are all connected to each other, no matter what our circumstances are. And one of the themes in this book, there are a number of themes, but one of them is unity. There are 2 sections in it, and I'm going to read just a few poems from each section. The first section is unusual in that it could be read as one long poem, 50-page poem, short poems on each page, or just pick the book up and read it. Just read a poem on the page. And I think something will happen. So these are not titled and not punctuated in this first section. Is our presence in the world to quiet the sorrow? Give it up for the river. Give it up for the rain. To yield until the mountain is part of the day. Can we make this choice even in our loud grief? There are days like this one. I would like to kneel in front of every person I meet. I would like to bow my head, let my hand fall to the ground. But I never done that once, not ever. Perhaps I never will. I want now to kneel in front of you and arrive at that quick moment when the failures of a lifetime resolve in a single gesture, you standing and me kneeling. At the end, all it took for the thief was one prayer: remember me. What is the way no one has thought to love you? I will look for that on this day, which is all nature releasing its breath before the long frozen winter. What secret rendezvous can we have today? One which will be a greeting and part of the goodbye that must now be always with us. When I was thinking about what to read, I realized that for people who are of the Christian faith are in the time of Advent, which is waiting for the birth of Christ. And it's, as I wrote this poem, and it's really a poem about waiting, but then at the end, there's an image of the wise men. So I thought I'd read that today. Waiting finally brings the gift, not the asking, and not insistence, maybe not even longing, waiting for the large bells to ring in their time, waiting for the pine needles to fall in their winter turn, and the leaves rush away down the rough road. The gift, when it arrives, all we could want. The men took a long time traveling through deserts and cold days, walking under the intimacy of trees built by nights under the stars. Ministry. This is from the second part, second section, which is more traditional, titled, punctuated poems. Ministry. My mother told me once that whenever someone hurting crossed her path, a person with a look of despair or who had been in an accident, she would say a small prayer. And when she died, I thought, now there is no one who will pray for me. A loss like no other loss. My mother was diffident. She never said anything about her wounds or what she must have known about mine. Instead, she attended in the only way she could and let my life be what it has to be. If you are able, in your belief or unbelief, pray for me now and at the hour of my death. Jenna had mentioned when she read about, introduced me that I'm Welsh. Welsh is my first language. I'm an immigrant. And so a few places in this book, it's actually behind this book a lot, is my experience as a Welsh immigrant. And there are a few images in this poems which indicate that. But the important thing to know about this poem is that the first he, the pronoun he in it in the first line is meant to be an angel. A visitation. What has he come to remind me of today? My grandmother wringing the neck of a chicken, an uncle riding into the Welsh night, the final ache of the snow as it melts in the middle of dense woods, the quail that flew past my house this morning. The angel's wings are high and solemn. He knows I will die without knowing the names of most things on earth, trees, mushrooms, ferns, birds, animals hidden in the dirt. Often the wind drowns out my voice. I will tell of what I can in broken lines, and then if time has the chance, perhaps a humming will begin, a riff, a song, and closer to the end, a chorus underneath the sacred words on earth, Nocturne, Omega, Hallelujah. And this is the last poem we're going to read to you, and it's called Measurements. It's in three stanzas, and the first two, everything in the first two stanzas is true, and maybe a bit in the last. Measurements. If you were the chief poet in Wales, you were given a harp by the king and a gold ring by the queen. If you insulted a poet, you would be levied 6 cattle and 120 pence. If you killed a poet, you'd be out 126 cattle and 120 pence. My mother, father, Gareth, and I took a train from Liverpool to Southampton docks and boarded the Britannic tourist class. 9 days later, arriving in the port of New York with 3 trunks, 1 basket, 1 tin trunk, 6 suitcases, and 1 hat box. Now, I look out of the frame of my hair into the frame of the window, which divides the blue sky further into pieces that change with the wind. I am a part of all of this, a broken bottle by the edge of the path, a leaf skittering over the frozen snow, one sparkle on the river flowing north. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. That was really, really moving. I'm going to be reading from Belly Dancing in a Brown Sweatsuit today. But before I get to belly dancing, I'm going to read a couple of other poems from that collection. This first one is called Irish Twins. When folks inquire about my children, I tell them I was 27 when I had my first, 29 when I had my second. This is not the whole story. I failed to share their birthdays are 7 weeks apart, or that my birthday is sandwiched in the middle because 2 years is a more respectable gap than 13 months and 3 weeks. I omit the part about passion born out of our Red Sox in the '86 World Series, the excitement of witnessing victory after victory, interrupted when Buckner and Mother Nature surprised us both. This next piece is called The Last Gift, and it's a piece about my cousin. 2 daughters, cross-legged on the hospital floor, heads down. Professors don't wait until your mother dies. Neither will they. Bedclothes barely rise and fall. Her form visibly shrunken, eyelids closed. It's not about me. Her husband motions to the empty chair. Stay a while. I mention a tape of peace songs I've compiled. My favorite, I'd like to teach the world to sing. Then her husband starts humming, and from the bed her small voice joins in. The girls' heads shoot up as their mother holds the whole world in her arms. For the moment, smiles all around. And my last piece is called Belly Dancing in a Brown Sweatsuit. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, and the first time I went through it, I had 9 months of treatment, and I really wanted to do something fun, so I thought I would go up to the high school and see if they had some fun kind of dancing, like tap, but they didn't. They had belly dancing, so there I was. This is belly dancing in a brown sweatsuit. The suit, chocolate-colored, more milk than dark, with a light aqua line racing up the leg. My little pop of femininity in otherwise masculine attire for an activity designed to make one feel vibrant and sexy after 9 months of treatment. They said wear comfy clothing. The instructor, dark-haired, exotic, energetic, smiles as she greets the class while donning her multicolored hip scarf, starts shimmying her torso, her percussive movements rewarded with a jiggling at every thrust, ends with tiny hip vibrations, then coaxes her wide-eyed 40-somethings. Okay, ladies, now you try. We configure ourselves in a line dancing pattern, mimic her gyrations, uncertain how to make our hips snap. Ridiculous and clumsy as she urges, let me show you again. The rebellion. The women stand, unsmiling, arms crossed, resembling a row of angry Mr. Cleans but with hair. They refuse to try it again, insisting they'd rather watch her dance. All except for me, the brown-suited belly dancer, who'd already spent too much time on the sidelines. I'll give it a go. The solo. As I shove my stiff arms to the side, like a department store mannequin, and move my hips. I hear laughter behind me. Very satisfying, a preferable alternative to surgery, infusions, and radiation. And I'm happy to provide the amusement. I didn't come to watch. Thank you.
This is such a pleasure to listen to people. So thank you for this, Elaine. I have a couple that I will read from Art and Soul, my newest book that Karen put out, and I thank Karen and her staff for doing this event today. The first one that I'm going to read is let's see if I can show the title. Ta-da, there we are. It's a guzzle, and it's called The Real Thing. With rangy limbs and loping walk, the cartwheel of you turned my head that fall, and I fell for the appeal of you. Your eyes listened, sparkling in tandem with your smile. Slow dancing, you'd wrap me in the humming feel of you. Letter writing kept the bond between us. In black and white, your cutaway, my gown. I daydreamed a newsreel of you and me on our wedding day. The year you were in the war, our voice cassettes flew back and forth. The ordeal for you was to serve, for us to last. I had a nightmare where you came back silent, surly, mean. Nightmares, surreal for you, pictured injury as your last days of duty dwindled to a few. I barreled to the airport, hands shaking at the wheel, till you bounded out the door. We could not unwrap our arms. This ring that wraps my finger is the lifetime seal of you. I squawk and coo to one who's become a hardy old bird, a white-crowned crane. I pen these lines with zeal for you. I can only read that because my husband's not home. He would be mortified. So I can read it. He's not home. The next one is also a love poem of a sort. I'll first read you the epigraph. Anne Lee, known as, quote, Mother Anne, was the founder of the 18th, 19th century Shaker religious communities, which required celibacy. So this form is in the form of this sonnet is in the form of a letter written by an imagined Quaker boy to Mother Anne. And it's called, giving it the title of the sign-off of the letter, Yours in Faith, Aaron Breed. Dear Mother Anne, I'm writing by the light of a candle end. The snores of the older men are sounding round me just like saws tonight, cross-cutting ragged scratchings of my pen. I've done my best at cutting birch and pine, at smoothing lath for chairs, at hauling stone for schoolhouse walls. I know the Lord's design requires my improvement. I must atone, and so I miss my rest and write to you. At meals, at meetings, a dozen times a day, I spy Eliza. Our faces burn, untrue to rules. We love the Lord, but as we pray, our eyes are dancing. Must I leave? She'd follow. I'd choose Eliza over Creed. And then to end, I have a short one called Church Bells of Italy. Through dusky lanes now comes the peal of bells that sound their evening chime. I too am struck, then stilled, to feel their harmony as tolled notes climb and dip. They shape an oral keel for balance through this anxious time. 3 times a day the bells appeal. Their call might be to one sublime, and 2 to one like me. I heal my spirit with the music's rhyme. Thank you.
will now continue, starting with Alan Perry, followed by Natalie Solmer and Kalina Smith. Alan Perry is the author of The Heart of It, published by Kelsay Books in 2025, and Clerk of the Dead by Main Street Rag in 2020. His poems have appeared in Tahoma Literary Review, Third Wednesday, Valparaiso Poetry Review, and elsewhere. A Best of the Net nominee, he is Managing Editor Emeritus of Rock Paper Poem. Alan, you may begin.
Thanks, Jenna. Hello, everybody, and special thanks to Karen and Jenna and Olivia. Nice to see you folks. Thanks for helping make possible my book from Kelsay. The Heart of It, which is probably blurred because my background is blurred. So just to give that a greater look, that's what it looks like. And again, thanks to Karen and company for coming up with a beautiful cover. The poem I'd like to read first from The Heart of It is what I'd call a bridge poem from the first book that Jenna mentioned, Clerk of the Dead. Clerk of the Dead was a book of elegies, people, places, things that we love. The Heart of It is really an examination of the various forms of love and relationships, the tensions that we have, and the embedded difficulties and hope that lies within each one of those relationships. Necessary matter. No matter how a freakish snowfall burdens the mesquite tree, leaning so heavily it bows to the equinox. No matter that the median's Palo Verde can't bear the weight of change, halves itself so one shaft survives. No matter that mourning doves tell me they are contented with rainfall, with each other, with their calling. What matters is the moment before absence, when recollection swells amid breakdown, when there's nothing beyond horizon but sky. That's when there is no loss, only precedent for grief, unbounded, sacred. I want to tell you when my best friend died, I wasn't there. My phone rang off key, rattled and clicked like slipping breath. There were only liminal spaces before that winter, half of us bending toward earth like a snow-laden trunk. And in the moments after snow melts, rivers come alive, reservoirs refill, depth gradually returns. So a shout out and maybe a request to Jean Kreiling. Jean, we may have to work on some sort of a collaboration about appliances. Cycles. The washing machine hisses as it sprays water over soiled laundry. Mixing soap I poured into the tub, food to fuel its work. The cylinder surges as fabrics lilt up and down, gently pushing dirt out of clothes down the drain, like the way we shed our epithelia, bits and flakes at a time, reinventing skin that protects us. As the cleaning nears completion, the machine rumbles, bangs against the wall, thumps on the floor. Damp clothes begin their wind down, spinning in a force that keeps them pressed together. The sequence ended, I noticed sheets wrap themselves around everything, like legs tangled in bed, clinging tighter than skin on skin, silk to satin. I gently peel apart the cottons and linens. My pant leg knotted around a blouse, her bra entwined with my shirt so firmly they look inseparable. But they're not. Delicate things need to breathe. So for anyone who truly knows horticulture and gardening, this poem is dedicated to you. Grafting. I make a slight incision in the bark, unaware of how to perform this intricate surgery. I'm not an arborist who knows what will help or hurt. All I want to do is add rings to this dying box elder sapling, extract new life from a giant oak, try to whittle a healthy twig into a V-notch slot. The sapling with its bandaged arm struggles to stand erect before I stake the ground wires. The genetics probably won't combine, two different trees that never grow together. They would need to adjust their forms, remake leaves in unknown patterns, eventually confusing the forestry experts. But I'll hope for new growth with abundant moisture and mulch. Add some old powdered plant food I found in the garage. This could be called a marriage, awkward, somewhat artificial, officiated by my ignorance. And when asked, I could say I'm trying to cultivate roots that dig for common ground, branches that breathe in unison. For those of us who have been through airports, which I think numbers almost everyone these days, the poem that I'm going to read is dedicated essentially to all the people we'll never meet. Baggage. She pushes her luggage cart through the concourse, tissue to her eyes. I barely notice she's crying until I roll past her with my carry-on. Her blouse is wrinkled, hair uncombed, and a long sweater wraps itself around her waist in a hug. Remnants, perhaps, from the Atlanta red-eye. As I look over my shoulder, she pauses, leans on her cart heaped with a satchel and two large bags, and seems to compose herself. She changes her pace intermittently, checks her phone, then glances at the glass ceiling as if dawn signals relief. I feel better, hoping her despair has eased. Was it bad news from home? A breakup with her partner? Perhaps the death of a loved one. I want to intrude, ask several none of your business questions. Text the sad scene to friends I'm meeting in Madrid, but I won't. Certain grief moves on wheels, brakes for no reason, then veers off, carrying its weight to an unexpected exit. At my gate, I see her again pass by as I queue up for boarding, her head still bowed as she turns a sharp corner near the duty-free shop and disappears down the escalator. I want her to be on a flight to Istanbul, where continents meet in narrow straits, cross over to each other freely, even if some cargo is never fully unloaded. And finally, a poem dedicated to love, if only imaginary. Mirroring. I imagine you found me beyond your frame, bustling around in our closet, sorting clothes, scarves that needed hanging, a wedding dress to be boxed, sweaters that warmed the coldest ocean chill. I didn't see you in the luminescence or bright reflection of daylight, not wanting to stop my own folding, packing, taping shut of intimate things. Only when I paused to sip your favorite tea, caught the scent of you in the bedroom, did I pause and sense you watching, reminding me how creases fold themselves into familiar patterns, how garments must be draped as if they're to be worn again, even if by someone else. No boxes can hold all these notions, no container sturdy enough to carry absence. Cardboard and plastic seem too inconsequential to care for all that adorned you. As I dim the lights, sit in our favorite love seat, I notice the standing mirror has turned slightly toward me, and in the closet, one carton reopened. Thanks very much.
Okay, yes. You know what, Alan? I majored in horticulture originally, but I never did much grafting. But yeah, I ended up working as a florist for a long time before I went back to school to become an English professor. I'm just going to read three poems from my book, Water Castle. This is the book, and I thank you so much to Karen and Jenna, and for giving me. This is my debut book of poetry. So, and Karen Petersen read a poem that mentioned the Sami people and some of the people in the Arctic region, and that made me think of this poem. It's called Dear Mother of My Mothers. Dear mother of my mothers, 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 it is rare for me to be alive and have you as ancestor, they say. When I open the map, your living children are a dark stain all around the Baltic, most dense in Siberian wilderness, and the Kailash of Pakistan. By some miracle, some linked mitochondria, some ocean steamer, I have been spit out here. Your cradle, the glacial, that filled in the ice all around me. 6,500 years ago, a bottleneck in Ukraine, where you longed for the colors of plant life. You'd paint anything you could find. My mother's mother cut up the cardboard waste, rinsed out glass bottles for her canvas to paint, for her nerves, for the anticipation of cold or of violence. Only mothers know how easily we are erased. And this book deals a lot with like my ancestry and my background. That was something where I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but like on some of the genealogy things, you can find out your maternal haplogroup. And mine was like a sort of rare-ish one that was mostly found in like Siberia. But my grandparents were from Eastern Europe. So this one is called The Two Grandmothers, and it's about how different they were. One was Polish and one was ethnically German, but born in Poland. Okay, so the two grandmothers, in their afterlife, some days I see them sitting side by side like the two Fridas, quiet with each other. They face my strange life, and just when I think I'll paint tears falling from their faces, Elfrida lights up a cigar, adjusts her cleavage and her satin blouse, clicks her boot heels. Agnieszka waves away Elfrida's smoke, clutches her necklace, a small blue Mary medallion. She slides back and forth over the chain. Agnieszka aside to me, can you put me back in my pink kitchen now? Her light blue eyes are still all light. She never worked, drove after she had her 5 kids. What? I was a seamstress, a baker, a cook. Don't forget I worked. Her eyes, saint, saint, I think every goodness in me must come from her. Shh. She waves my thoughts away, her wine-red heart still showing over her flower-embroidered white button down, where I painted it in my head. What's with these blood-red veins anyway? How they travel outside us and lead straight to you, Elfrida complains. These tethers are making me uncomfortable. This isn't working. I allow Agnieszka to go back to her midnights, her Davenport, watching Carson or Golden Girls, laughing in the dark. Elfrida says, it's bad enough you've cut away at our chests. Why don't you just put us in our wedding dresses? Or at least I'll wear my Russian fur hat. Or put me in the garden with my troll figurines. Give me a beer, my German dolls. You always thought I was a bad person because you heard me say I don't like babies. So what if I had a little German band and I played trombone? What music do you want from me? What use are we to you now if you never listen? You're so much like me you can't even stand it. She smiles a sharp smile. Now both grandmothers are speaking so fast I can't get all the words on the page. I let them loose and take a break. In the bathroom, I try to find my bones. Whose lips, whose nose, whose poverty and sadness in the gene. The grandmothers have wandered back to where they were sitting, but they've defected. They've stitched up their hearts and put on their wedding gowns. The cords from their chests that lead and pinch back into my own are nothing but ghostly outline, transparent, white. They have turned themselves young again and are almost too beautiful to look at. They kid each other, delight in their lithe bodies, and start to dance, a polka together. We want to feel our skirts spinning. Each one takes a turn laughing, trying to teach the other a style, a step. Yes, yes, we are here. What is it you want? And I really did imagine I was having a conversation with them while I was writing that. Okay, so in the later part of my book, I talk more about my relationship and my children, and my partner, father of my children, who is actually from Jamaica. And so there's some Jamaica poems. And as you know, there's recently a hurricane there. It made landfall near Black River. I don't know if anybody saw the footage of Black River. And actually I have a poem called Black River in here because we had visited there before. And some of the landmarks that I talk about were like flattened. Okay. But obviously not before I wrote this. So, they're still alive in these, they're still constructed in this poem. Okay, Black River. 9 of us in the van, swaying, sticky hot. When Uncle's thermos of rum punch hits, we're flying. Come close to meeting angels where we pass near curves. We swerve and bump around the craters down Highway 88, then A2 along the coast, stop in White House. Fried fish, okra soup, and festival. But I'm all stomach, clenched, a bad traveler. When we finally arrive in Black River, driving along High Street, I get a chill as we pass St. John's white Gothic windows, chipped and the old brown brick, and then the scarred white colonial courthouse. My mind flashes on those who used to worship and rule, the ones who enslaved the ancestors of my children's father, and the family who hum and sing in the van around me. When we reach River Safari, the men walk over the bridge to drink beers, and I sit with the women and talk about love. Staring upriver at the wharf, I don't know until I go home that it's marked death spot of the Zong and the slave market where my son's forebears might have stood. One uncle is catching crabs in a bottle, another is eating guava from the tree. When my love offers me one, I refuse. So he plucks a hibiscus bloom, puts it behind my left ear. This will make you feel better. Once we get in the boat, I carry it over the water until the pedals aren't strong enough for the boat's drag of wind. I pack it away in my bag somewhere in the middle of the red mangroves, and a little of my sickness lifts with the egrets. We're all laughing at Uncle and our guide Andrew in the khaki suit who knows the facts and jokes and slaps the water and pets the 1,000-pound crocs like dogs. Driving back, passing the not past, those structures shivering ghostly, I note to look them up. I grip the back of a headrest. Grandma falls asleep against me, and all 4 boys in the back, cousins, shoulder to shoulder, drift off, mouths agape. Thank you.
Hi. I'm gonna be reading from my first chapbook ever. So, it's called Scorpio Season, and it was released in September. Um, and it kind of deals with transformation and a lot of the visuals that you would see in the fall. Um, the first one I'm gonna read is actually a villanelle about um a Scorpio boy that I was obsessed with, hence the title Scorpio Season. Um, it's called Black Work. I want to tattoo my body until there's no skin left. cover up the scars, raised an angry white, ink up the heart inside my chest. I'll start with things you love, like music fests, smoking weed, horror movies, and UFC fights. I want to tattoo my body until there's no skin left. You'll see butterflies and clovers when I'm undressed. Song lyrics from late nights gone and floral scenes, inking up the heart inside my chest. The needles will become one with my arms to cover the lines, remnants of cardiac arrest. I want to tattoo my body until there's no skin left. In the center of my breast, I'll dedicate to you a crest, with shades of purple, red, and green, inking up the heart inside my chest. So that maybe in my body you'll become a permanent guest. Run your hands over the healed skin white. I'm going to tattoo my body until there's no skin left. Black ink filling up the heart inside my chest. So this next one is kind of based around characters that I wrote in a novel length work. And it's called Obeyed with the Mockingbird Witness. Chirping interrupts the afterglow. Yellow light filters in from the gaps in the black curtains, illuminating the massive tattoo on your chest. Fluorescent dandelion. I wake up before you in your maritable bed. Ivory sheets, pillows, and a duvet. I imagine it stained red from last night when you poured me a glass of Merlot, bed tainted by my hairy body, and leaving a semblance of evidence. The sound is a mockingbird at the window who taunts me as I try to absorb the ink that touched you before me, just like your wife does every other night. Somehow the bird knows I must leave before the sun slips back into place among the clouds, but your lanky arms hold me like a vice that I won't make myself escape from. That bird song reminds me of the guitar you taught yourself to play, and the rough calluses you've had on your fingers since we were 14, and you became the best friend I ever had. How those calluses cut my cheeks like a feather's touch, but they also can grip my hips so hard they leave bruises in the swirls of your fingertips. So if we dusted my body for prints, you'd be the prime suspect. You're still asleep as I wrench myself out of the heart that doesn't belong to me, the body I have to share. You don't have to hear the funeral procession the mockingbird performs as I pull on my shirt and close the door. Um, and I think I would like to end on a positive note since the other two were kind of heavy. So this one is a poem I wrote about my grandma who loves the color purple very much. It's called She Wanted Purple Jeans for Christmas. They say purple people really love purple, and that is so true of my grandma Carolyn. If she could, she'd dye all she owns with orchil and put food coloring in her chicken and dumplings. Grandma loves her irises, but I hope one day she'll have violets, lilacs, and bellflower, because she's faithful, loving, gracious, and gold. Maybe she'll get those with this spring showers. I hope she knows that to me she is mulberry, healing, protecting amethyst, and devoted lavender, a serene periwinkle and strong like my pawpaw's plum trees. On her irises rests a purple emperor. Thank you guys for having me and for everything.
Thank you so much, Kalina. It was a delight to hear you read. Finally, we are going to have Myra Rasmussen, followed by the last reader, Jeremy Cantor. Myra Tejada Rasmussen is an adjunct professor at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, UNCW. She's been a finalist for the James Applewhite Poetry Prize and a finalist for the Poets Billow Pangea Poetry Prize. She lives in Wilmington, North Carolina with her husband Eric and her daughter Zelie. Chakana is her first collection. Myra?
Hello, everyone. Want to thank Kelsay and the staff for such a great reading and for deciding to publish my debut collection. Here it is, or probably I should unblur, but it's called Chakana. You can kind of see I'm not very good with, let's see, unblur my background. There we go. There we go. This was published in June of this year, and it centers around my travels around Latin America and basically my search for identity as a Hispanic woman and how I fit into the Hispanic culture in Latin America and here in the United States. So I'd like to start off this poem, Night Mercado. There is some Spanish that is sprinkled throughout my poetry as part of my homage to my culture. And this poem takes place in La Paz, Bolivia. My husband and I had been doing like a 3-month backpacking trip throughout South America. And we came across La Paz, and as many of you probably know, it's a very high elevation. And we were walking through the town, and unbeknownst to us, we came across a night market. So this is the poem about that experience. Night Mercado, La Paz, Bolivia. Crowds of Bolivianos descend from the poverty of El Alto, gather in the streets of the night Mercado in La Paz. You become intoxicated by the music of it all, how the collage of their bodies creates a controlled chaos, the choreographed dance of legs from booth to identical booth. Vociferous men repeat, "Cuánto cuesta?" bartering for coca leaves, for one of thousands of different light bulbs. Stiletto heels, red and green striped tube socks, toilet seats, or the most intimate of lingerie. You can't seem to shake this clatter of worn heels on cobblestones, drowned only by the clamor of car horns, heads jutting out from battered minibus windows, arms flailing, men yelling, "Muévate, carajo!" It's quite paralyzing here. Even the smells have sounds. Eggs frying in oversized iron pots for stealing pancho, the sizzling of sausages, soft thuds from fresh rolls dropping into barrels, the dripping of fig jelly from empanadas, and how the strawberry juice swishes in plastic bags tied in knots. You hear the maddening sounds of mutts barking, large ones, small ones, always in packs of 3. Notice how they scurry between people's legs, under tables, sniffing at trash littering sidewalks, stores, and streets. They challenge homeless women for leftovers hidden under wash buckets, for small pieces of fried chicken still on the bones in napkins next to sewage drains, for fruit still attached to the peels, or perhaps for a piece of melted chocolate. A young boy, no older than 12, pushes a wagon carrying a boombox, the vibration of the bass awkward inside of you. You notice a couple holding hands walk by. When the man turns his head towards the woman, sings along to the song, "Hay tantas cosas que me gustan hoy de ti," you blush. And when her exhilarating laugh echoes in the valley, everything around you becomes still, and you recognize, even among these crowds, just how lonely you are. It's sensible to suppose agony dominates in all this suffocation. Yesterday, you wondered, how can people live like this? But tonight, you begin to discover the beauty in this chaos. Feel the melody these sounds bring to you, how you want everything about this place to change you. So you ask, how do their lives illuminate the night sky, 12,000 feet above anything I come close to calling home? Let's see. The next one here is from the Dominican Republic. A separate travel. My husband and I were there doing horseback riding with a guide. A young girl was our guide. And we came across a beautiful waterfall near Samana. So this is the poem El Limón. Waterfall near Samana, Dominican Republic. We rode horses to El Limon, brown horses. Mine named Cacao or Chocolate, yours named something I cannot remember. It had rained that afternoon, and smells of basil and mango mixed with the rawness of the thick red mud. Our guide, a poor young girl, walked between our horses, kept a loose hold on Cacao's muzzle, while her rain boots sloshed with every difficult step. Suddenly, it began to rain again, hard. She placed a used white plastic bag over her head, protecting her tight braids. She knew this weather, knew in this rainforest things could change instantly. Along the path, she picked a pink grapefruit from a tree, peeled it as she walked, offered us slices. You nodded graciously, said gracias, then an unexpected, wow, honey, you gotta try this, while licking your fingers one by one. The girl giggled, then looked to me, noticed the uneaten slices held between my thumb and fingers. Specks of dirt coated the fruit. Small gnats rested atop its citrus seeds. As if understanding my hesitation, a sadness filled her eyes, an apologetic stare, believing she had nothing better to give. I recognized her offer then. It was as if she was trying to say, welcome to El Limon. Release yourself to these jungles, to everything unfamiliar and wild. You were happy to finally see me concede. Take a bite. In that instant, grapefruit juices ran from my mouth, nestled into the folds of me, into those familiar places you traced effortlessly those nights before I fell asleep. I remember how sweet citrus sugars mixed with my body's salts, then the impulsive jump off Cacao into the warm waters of the waterfall that bellowed down and hard. How delicious it felt discovering myself among her world of juices. You became hypnotized by my transformation, swam to me against the heavy waters to tell me, remember, this is who you really are. In the end, though, your words were too heavy for me to carry back, meant instead to stay beneath the waterfall, sink slowly from the current's frothy foam to that ledge of undercut rock, unreachable by sunlight, breath, or our faith in each other. I remember how, on the way back, you rode with me on Cacao. It began to thunderstorm. Bursts of lightning illuminated the wet green around us. The young girl, knowing the path ahead would soon become muddier, harder to traverse, told you to wrap your arms around me, tight. I should have asked her then, what should I do? Unlike me, she had something more yet to give. This next poem, I was honored to be selected in this year's Rio Grande, the Boundless Anthology. It is called The Golden Length of Summer. During the golden length of summer, the kitchen curtains shine several shades of blue, and this makes my mother fake happy. She looks out the window for my father, fries eggs with extra butter, wildberry preserves on the side. Why is it called preserves, I ask. Because sugar keeps you sweet, preserves your heart. Then she kisses my forehead, the stench of burnt bacon from the blackened pan sizzles. During the golden length of summer, my father toils the backyard earth in search of black soil. Like tar, he says, needs to burn black as tar. He stabs the hoe into the ground. Small worms squirm to the top, suffocate in the air. I pick one up, watch it jiggle. Once, I saw my mother tear a worm in half. Both halves kept wiggling between her fingers, one more than the other. Can it feel pain? I asked. No, she said, as she dropped the pieces into her apron pocket. Wouldn't it be nice to be a worm for a day? Bury yourself within quiet spaces of carrots, swim in endless pools of heirloom tomatoes. During the golden length of summer, my mother learns to play with fire, the kind of fire that can leave skin scalloped. I want to be cooked by love, she says, then a match in her fingers and her world ablaze. Does it hurt? I ask her later while she lays on their bed covered in wet rose petals. No, she says, as flakes of skin fall to the ground. Ants carry them away like sugar, back to the soil for my father to find. And my last poem is called Awana Concha. It is a small llama farm near Pisac, Peru, where women do a lot of weaving. Sometimes you'll see those beautiful sweaters or scarves from Peru. They're knit here, among one of many other places. But this is a looming farm called Awana Concha. Awana Concha, small llama farm near Pisac, Peru. And this one's dedicated for my mother. Crouched by looms made of llama bones, women weave in synchrony, bodies swaying to pan flute harmonies. Around them, bright yarn twirling on drop spindles. My body is hypnotized by rhythm. Recipes pass mother to daughter. Crush cochineal bugs for red dye. Add lemon to blood for burnt orange. Chisel from indigo rock the marine blue buried in the deepest corner of sky. Find bliss in the burgundies. Let smells of chocolate and greens seep from nogal leaves. Rustle quietly through harango trees, and always, always set fire to the elements. A fire that requires attention, an innate tenderness, like the tenderness a mother gives her child. A gift of Sancha Suncha violets wrapped in her words, El tiempo todo lo cura. Mother, I think of you now, as an Incan woman offers me a scarf of the finest alpaca, sprinkled with bits of gold, as the crisp Andean air presses against my face, while the black night uncurls its hands over the mountain pass and releases me. Thank you again.
Myra. Last, we will have Jeremy read.
Can you all hear me? First, I want to thank Karen and her staff who are very good at what they do and very patient. Those are both very important things. I'll be reading two poems from, I'll have to unblur it. Even putting it the same distance from the lens doesn't fix that. I'll be reading two poems from my book, Remodeling the Zen Master's Kitchen. I live in a town 35 miles northeast of San Francisco where you can go fishing from the pier at the bottom of First Street. And I thought of this poem while I was fishing in the evening, but not all at once, over the course of a year. A toast. Here's to the song you heard when you were falling in love, but have forgotten the title and the tune and the lyrics. So even if you fell in love to some other song, you'll think this song is that song. Here's to the way your heart shunted your brain onto a sidetrack and left it where you would have to go and find it, and drive it back into town the next day, or the next year, or maybe not ever. Here's to the way the morning sun through the curtains on the kitchen window during breakfast the morning after suddenly made you think not of Vermeer, but of Edward Hopper. Here's to the surface of the water that has already crossed into night, trying to reflect the evening sky's indigo, but instead showing you a color you have no name for, that promises quiet. If only you will slip beneath the surface, past the point where you'll hear water lapping at your ears, to where eyes closed or eyes open is all the same. Envy. I envy the fanatic because he has no doubts. I envy the skeptic because he has no certainty. I envy the dolphin because she moves in 3 dimensions. The mathematician because she moves in 2 but dreams in many. I envy the earthworm because it only needs be concerned with 1. I envy the geometric point because it has none, but feels no lack. I envy the lion because everyone fears him. I envy the butterfly because no one does. I envy the hawk because he dreams of nothing he cannot do. I envy the ant because she is never lonely. I envy the honeybee because she always knows her way home. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are finished with our reading. I wanted to thank everyone for being here, and it's really nice to hear your voices and match your names up with your faces. Before we go, Jen is going to show a cover of our journal, the Orchards Poetry Journal that just went live. It's available on the Kelsay Books website, and there are about 190 pages, no, 100 and
Yeah, nearly 200.
yeah, I would hold it up, but I don't want to unblur my background because you'll see a big mess of sewing projects behind me. So I have to take my word for it. I don't know how many poets we have in here, but there are a lot. So if you're not familiar with this journal, you might want to check it out. We give Pushcart Prize nominations in each biennial book that we release, and also we give cash prizes on the 2 best poems that editors picked. So you might want to check it out. We have it, it's online for free. You can download it or you can buy the book for $17. So that's our little ad. I wanted to thank everybody and all the team members that are here today for helping with the production, especially Olivia, who does our technical stuff. And if you guys want to stay and chat a little bit for about 5 minutes, we'll just keep it open. You can unmute yourselves and